So it's been 1 year now working with my brother Matty, and coming into this year I have always been a Canon user. I have used Canon probably for the last 9-10 years, other than a little bit of dabbling with the Olympus cameras and the GH5. But predominantly been shooting on Canon cameras. I know I started with the Canon Rebel, I think it was like the XI, XS, I don't know, something Canon Rebel. Then I had the Canon T2i, then I had the 5D Mark II, 5D Mark III, 6D Mark II, EOS R, and then I got the 1DX Mark II, and then Canon R5. So that's like 8 camera bodies that I've had over the course of the last 9-10 years of being a photographer and filmmaker. So coming here to Canada, working with my brother Matty, I knew that I would have to learn how to shoot on Sony cameras because that's predominantly what he's shooting with when he's doing the videos for his channel. And periodically, you guys have been asking, will I switch over from Canon to Sony? Day 2 of filming, trying to get some product shots of the R5 and the A7S III, and I'm using this new Aperture MRM P60C. Very interesting guy, look how bright this thing goes. Just trying to use this to get some shadows and movement on the cameras. Thought I'd show you some BTS of me doing these shots. And that's what I thought we would talk about in today's video. My journey over the past year, will I go and stay with Canon or will I switch over to Sony? And if I'm brutally honest with you guys, when I started working with my brother Matty, shooting with Sony cameras, it was tough. I was just fumbling around with the buttons and the menus and I didn't know how to use the camera, and it almost makes you feel like you're a complete beginner again because you're just so lost with the camera. Whereas with a Canon camera, I know all the buttons, the menus inside and out. I know how to shoot with the camera, which makes you feel confident and good about shooting with it. So in the beginning, shooting with the Sony cameras, it was tough and I definitely didn't feel comfortable. I felt like a fish out of the water. But then as time went on and you get used to the buttons and the features and the menus, you get that feeling like, maybe there is something with these Sony cameras. Maybe I should just consider switching to them. So that's why in today's episode, I thought it'd be fun to invite you guys along on the journey with me and help me decide, should I stick with Canon and continue shooting on the Canon R5, or should I jump over to Sony and start shooting with the Sony A7S III? You guys get to decide which system I'll be shooting in the future. In order to decide which cameras or lenses or systems you should invest in, you gotta first decide what are your needs. Because different filmmakers, photographers are gonna need different kinds of gear. For example, a Hollywood filmmaker probably isn't gonna be shooting their videos, their movies on a Sony A7S III, but they would shoot it on a Red or an Arri Alexa. Vice versa, a YouTube content creator probably isn't going to be shooting their videos on a Red. I would say it's a little bit of an overkill. Just like a wildlife photographer would use something like a 300mm lens, a YouTube content creator would use something like the 16-35 for vlogging. So there's different kinds of cameras, different kinds of lenses, depending on what kind of photographer and filmmaker you are. It's about finding the gear that you can use to do what you do best. And my needs as a photographer and filmmaker have changed a lot over the years. You know, I started as a wedding photographer, filmmaker. I need certain types of gears for that. Then I was shooting a lot of freelance videos and I needed certain kind of cameras and lenses for that. And now I've been predominantly doing YouTube content creation, which again is a whole other ball game with different sets of cameras and lenses that I wouldn't have maybe used so much before, but nowadays I'm using a lot. So the type of gear that I needed to shoot freelance versus weddings versus YouTube, they are all totally different. So when it comes to gear, what do I need in order to become a great YouTube content creator? We're gonna dive deep into that, but first, I wanna give a moment for this episode's sponsor and actually a long-term partner of my channel, and that's ArtGrid. The more I use ArtGrid, the more I am convinced that ArtGrid is one of the most underrated tools that all filmmakers could have at their disposal. Whether you're a filmmaker, a YouTube content creator, basically anyone who needs epic B-roll to tell a story, ArtGrid has what you guys need. If you want to make an epic athletic commercial like those Nike commercials you see on the TV, you got it. Just download a few clips, put them together, you're done. Epic athletic commercial is ready. If you don't want to be fumbling around with your camera when you're traveling in an airport, but you want to tell the story of your trip, you got that. You got clips from airports, airplanes, whatever you need to tell the story of your travels. Or if you just simply want to make what you're saying in words visually more pleasing, you got it. You download those clips, put them top of your talking head shots, and you've got a beautiful piece made with the clips from ArtGrid. ArtGrid literally has thousands of cinematically filmed clips that you can use for all of your guys' projects. And the best part is it's not just one-off clip, because that's often very hard to edit and piece with, but they're always filmed in sequences, meaning you have 3, 4, 5 angles from the same location of the same subject, meaning as an editor, it's so easy to piece them together and make really amazing pieces with the stock footage from ArtGrid. You've got your wides, you've got your tight shots, you've got your medium shots, you have all the angles that you need to tell the story that you want. So instead of spending literally thousands of dollars jumping on a plane, all the hours to travel across the world just to get maybe one clip for the project that you need, just go to ArtGrid. You'll be able to get just as amazing or even better filmed cinematic clips that you could use for your project, saving tons of time, tons of money, and in the end, probably getting a better result. At least I know if I was out there filming, I would probably not film as well as the clips on ArtGrid. The best part is ArtGrid has a tiered subscription-based model, so if you're just starting out and you maybe don't need the 8K, the RAW, the log footage, you can just get their junior model, which costs only $24 a month. But then if you are a professional cinematographer, filmmaker, editor, and you need that 4K, 8K log, then you can pay $50 a month and get all that footage for your project, which is not a lot of money considering the difference of flying across the world and getting the footage that you need for your project. $50 a month, very affordable. At this point, I know that I've piqued your interest, so I'm gonna give you guys the permission to just pause my video right now, click the link in my description, and go sign up for ArtGrid. For real, I'm not offended at all if you just click pause right now, go check out ArtGrid for a little bit, and then the video will be here waiting for you guys. Because I genuinely want you guys to experience the same excitement that I've been feeling whenever I'm scrolling through the ArtGrid website and realizing how much amazing epic footage is available for me to use on my project. Welcome back to the video. Whew. Glad you guys did come back. I guess that means that you guys are enjoying this video and you're excited to help me decide whether I should be shooting on Canon or Sony when I step into becoming a full-time YouTube content creator. Like I said before, every creator has different needs, which means different types of gear. And in 2022, I'm gonna be starting out as a full-time YouTube content creator. And as a YouTube content creator, I have very different preferences for my camera and my lenses and the gear I'm using versus when I've been a wedding photographer. For example, as a wedding photographer, I love shooting just on a 50mm or a 35mm all day long, but as a YouTube content creator, I very rarely use those lenses. So when it comes to cameras that I like to use when I'm making my YouTube content, there's a few things, and I wrote down a little list here. There's a few things that I really want in all of my cameras. First, I want them to be small and compact. I don't want a huge cinema camera. I want reliable autofocus, a flip LCD screen because it's very important that I see what I look like and what the exposure and the composition is looking like when I'm filming. I want a wide point of view, 4K, 24 frames per second and 120 frames per second. I like having that dynamicness of having the vlogging content, but then that epic B-roll. And it has to be editable, meaning I wanna have a codec that I can easily edit to. It's not gonna be choppy because we all know when it comes to YouTube content, you gotta be creating a lot of videos in a week. It's not like you're doing just like 1 or 2 projects a month. You're pumping out videos constantly. So you wanna make sure that the editing workflow is fast and smooth. I want to have great IBIS. I don't want the camera just to be fumbling and bouncing and shaking all over. I want the footage to look smooth. So let's compare the camera that I've been currently using, the Canon R5, and its Sony equivalent, the A7S III, and decide which camera has more of these needs that I just listed off for you guys. So number 1 was small and compact. And if I'm brutally honest, I don't think the R5 or the A7S III really check off those boxes. they're both pretty big, especially then when you add a 16-35 lens on either one of these, it ends up being a lot bigger. But recently I did find out that Canon actually just released for the RF lenses line the 60mm, which is a really small lens, and a friend of mine, Bench H, actually did a YouTube review on that, and when you see his setup, it looks so tiny. So there's not much opportunity with the Sony camera with the 16-35 to have a small compact setup, but a 16mm on this camera, that could be pretty small and compact. So I'll give half a point to the Canon R5, but not a full point because these bodies are both very huge. Point number 2 is I want to have reliable autofocus, and in my opinion, both these cameras have great autofocus, great eye detection, so I don't think either one of those I'll have any problem with that. So point for the R5 and the A7S III. Feature number 3 that I absolutely need in my cameras when I'm making YouTube videos is the flip LCD screen. You want to be able to see what you're looking like when you're filming, and the Canon has always had the flip LCD screen. Sony back in the day had this weird flip LCDs that just flip vertically, but thankfully nowadays Sony as well has the flip LCD screen. So point goes to both of them. Maybe a half bonus point I would give to the Canon because I love the fact that you can just scrub through the footage with your finger, and that's not a feature on the Sony cameras. Sony, please add the finger scrubbing feature, especially when you're scrubbing through slow motion footage. You gotta press the forward button and just like wait for it to fast forward, whereas with the Canon, I can just, with my finger scrub through the slow motion footage, and it's just so much nicer when you're reviewing the footage that you've filmed. So let's give another half point extra to Canon. Feature number 4 is having a wide point of view, and both on the R5 and the A7S III, the R5 has the 15-35 lens and the A7S III has the 16-35 lens, which is going to give you that really wide point of view, which is exactly what you want when you're a YouTube content creator. You want to invite the audience into your scene, and you don't want it to just be a floating head in the shot. So definitely great having wide-angle lenses. They do cost a lot, but if I'm honest, as a YouTube video content creator, I'm using pretty much that one lens probably like 95% of the time. So it does cost a lot, but it's definitely worth the investment. So point to both the R5 and the A7S III for wide point of view. Feature number 5, 4K, both the R5 and the A7S III check off for that. They both can film 4K at 24 frames per second and 120 frames per second. So that's really nice. The R5 does have 8K, but I think that's a little bit overkill for YouTube videos. I definitely don't want to be storing thousands upon thousands of gigs of data when it comes to making YouTube videos, so I won't be filming on 8K. Actually, did you know for the longest time I was filming most of the videos still in 1080? Probably a lot of you guys didn't even realize. Feature number 6 that I want on a camera is having the ability to film slow motion. Canon R5 has 60 frames per second and 120 frames per second. A7S III, 60, 120, and 240, which is a nice little bonus, and I'm gonna give half point bonus to this camera because when you're filming some nice action sports, water, just seeing that like water spraying at 240 frames per second, it looks pretty dang epic. Feature number 7, having an edible codec. Now, before the days of Final Cut and the M1 computers that we're using right now, the R5 was horrendous for editing. Honestly, that was probably one of the reasons where I was like, it's not even possible to film and edit on the R5 because it's just so choppy in Premiere. But now with Final Cut, I've been testing the R5 footage and the A7S III, and they both are pretty much just as smooth. So that's a nice relief knowing with Final Cut and with the new M1 Max MacBook Pros that we're editing on, no problem there. I can edit and render out videos on both these cameras very smoothly. And now the last feature, number 8, IBIS. I remember when the R5 came out, it was the first camera from the Canon line that had IBIS, and I was really pumped for that. But then, slowly as I started using the IBIS, especially when you're filming with a wider point of view, like the 15-35 lens, you notice that it had this weird jello wobble effect. And a lot of you guys comment in my videos that, what is that wobble? Oh, the R5 wobble. And it drives me nuts too. If I'm honest with you guys, it's one of the reasons why I haven't been enjoying vlogging as much with the R5. Whereas with the A7S III, their IBIS is really steady and you don't have that weird wobble. So I would definitely give the full point to the A7S III. So if we go back and look at the chart, I ended up giving fairly similar point system both camera. I gave a 0.5 bonus point to the R5 for having a small compact setup with the 60mm. That has great potential. And as well, I gave a small 0.5 point bonus for the LCD screen, the fact that you can just scrub through slow motion and that. The Sony A7S III, I gave a 1 full point extra for the IBIS, and then I gave 0.5 bonus for 240 frames per second. So, judging by the points, the A7S III won, but not by much, by only 0.5 points. So I guess the question that I wanna throw to you guys is that, does the R5 wobble drive you guys that nuts that you don't enjoy watching my videos? Because ultimately, you guys are the audience. You guys are watching my videos, and I want you guys to be able to enjoy the video and not get dizzy with all this wobbling. So, is that a big enough deciding factor for me to switch from the Canon to the Sony A7 III? I want you guys to decide. I want you guys to comment below, and maybe actually there's more features or things that I didn't consider when I'm thinking between the Canon R5 and the Sony A7 III. So I want you guys to help me. Comment below what you guys think are the pros and cons of the R5 and the pros and cons of the A7S III, and help me decide 1 year later, will I continue with Canon or will I go to Sony? Alright guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed this ride. Thank you for coming along on this journey, on this side-by-side comparison of these two cameras. Really waiting for your guys' comments below. Write down what you guys think. What would you like me to be shooting with in 2022? Alright, it's time for me to start my workday.